good afternoon. My name is Larisa Odessky. I'm an assistant professor with the Graduate School, and I will be talking to you about tools for facilitating and evaluating group work. Let's look at it very quickly over our objectives. So I'll talk very briefly about the team-based learning model. We'll talk about peer evaluation methods, some best practices, a little bit about grading, and the toys, which is the really cool part of software that can help us do all of this. I hope that none of us had this experience, but I'm sure at least one experience in our lifetime was where this acronym of together, everyone annoys me, define teamwork. And if I ask my students or your students or anyone, usually what happens is traditionally students divide the work, somebody skates by or freeloads, and somebody takes the lion's share and runs the whole group like hello type A personalities, hi. And what happens is they don't communicate well, there's conflict. And traditionally, grading-wise, we usually assess the individual components or work. And so by grade value, we don't really value collaboration. So now let's turn to something called the team-based learning model. And the Graduate School had a wonderful workshop a while back. So I'm going to go very briefly at it to refresh those that attended, and those who didn't, I put resources at the end of the presentation where you can really learn. Why does the team-based learning model, or TBL, works much better than traditional group work, or just form the teams? They have components which allow for individual and the teamwork to be evaluated and helped with. So the TBL model usually has two parts, the readiness assurance process and the application activities. If we look at the readiness assurance process, which is on the right in details, you'll see that there's preparatory material, which is the course module content. Individual readiness tests, individuals take an individual quiz, multiple choice, and that assures us that they did read the readings. We got that. Then there's the team assuredness test, where the team is tasked with something. Appeals process, usually feedback from the instructor leads the team back to explore other topics. And we have a mini lecture or clarification, usually an email. Traditionally, TBL has been a flipped classroom model and done face-to-face, but it has been adapted online. So using my course as an example, I want to show you how it works. So on Monday, this is the first solid line you'll see. The module opens, there's required readings and an individual test. Then what happens is we have the group test, which is for my course, they need to come up with a question for literature review and then a project. They will go into a small group discussion. This happens off either in Blackboard or Google Hangouts or Facebook or whatever the cool kids are doing these days. And on Wednesday, I have a hard submission where all the teams in the class have to submit. I'll give them feedback. This is the appeals process. They go back and explore other avenues or literature, and then they post their final choice into a team whole class discussion. This has two components. The team has to present their choice, usually the team leader, and they have to give their explanation why they chose this. And then each individual student then responds to another team's question with either discussion or building, something happens. So here, the main goal is, in the course design for teamwork, you have to have both the individual and the team components. So let's talk about peer evaluation, assessing teamwork. This is the best way to facilitate and evaluate teamwork. I'm going to sell you now on peer evaluations in your classes. So here's the spiel. It gives you the responsibility for the individual preparation. All the students have to have their contribution in order to get part of their grade. It discourages freeloading because their team role, and again, part of their grade based on other evaluations of them, which increases their awareness of their behavior and what behaviors are successful or not so successful in evaluating others. Some of the best practices we think when it comes to peer evaluation is you have to have the buy-in. You have to explain to the students why they are doing it. This is not just busy work. And one of the best ways to do it is to frame it. This is something you do in every profession. You evaluate your peers. This is your professional development. You do have to give a modest reward because Students are motivated by grades, so ensure the compliance and they are motivated to do it. It has to be explained very clearly of how it's going to affect their grade, what's going to happen, how it works. Whether it has to be like the core syllabus, every module that it's going to happen, the pre-brief. In fact, if you can rent a skywriting plane and write it over their houses, I would do it too, because they need to know how it works. And the transparency aspect, so they understand how these peer evaluations affect their grade and also their teammates' grade. It helps to build trust among them and you, and it helps to develop shared expectations of behaviors and roles and good teamwork. So here's an example of how to do these type of things online, and I'm again going to use one of my courses as an example. So for example, you're in module 3 of your coursework, and that's where you have the assignment. They are going to do a peer evaluation. I, as the instructor, do a pre-brief. This is why you're doing this. This is what you're doing. This is how it's going to affect your grade. Explanation. They do a formative or summative evaluation using quantitative or qualitative or both. I review all the feedback before I release it. They have a group discussion where they discuss amongst themselves, and I require them to do an individual reflection and a debrief from me based on what went well and what could be improved. So here it has to be structured. The debrief and individual reflection has to be in that assignment. It has to be part of it. And students have to be familiar with whatever you're using, like a Likert scale, because there is a language barrier sometimes or misunderstanding of how just one grade off can affect everything. And again, remind them why they're doing it, not just busy work. Frequency, as often as you can. So it has to be introduced early in the semester. You can do a formative one for practice with low stakes. You can have multiple cycles of both formative and summative evaluations. Definitely do it before the end of the course, because there have been instances where I looked at evaluations at the end, huge conflicts that they did not tell me about, and now I have no recourse. I cannot do mediation, nothing. It's done. And also allows me as an instructor to see what's been happening in the team if you do it early and throughout the course. So hopefully I sold you on it. Hopefully you're going to do it. And here's your checklist. You need to set the criteria first. There is predetermined and validated criteria. School of Nursing has, well, the nursing field has wonderful team up, or you can have the students develop the criteria by which they can be evaluating each other. It can be a wonderful team exercise if you decide to do it. Decide on the evaluation method, quantitative, qualitative. I'll go into each one of these in a second. Communicate your peer evaluation clearly, often, everywhere, and be ready to respond to the student challenges. This is not fair, somebody misgraded. So be ready for that happening and have a mechanism in place for that. Let's talk about a little bit criteria. So as I said, there are established domains that you can do. There are validated tools. In fact, each field, I'm sure, has one. Or you can do the student. You evaluate it themselves. Team-based exercises early. It's a great team building activity. So here's a sample called Team Up. We're not gonna go through it, but they have domains, they have competencies in which one. Here's a citation in case you really want to peruse it and use it. And let's talk about the actual methods. There are multiple methods available, but I'm going to focus on 3 most popular ones. So the first one is basically divide the money. We're going to give student points and they're going to divide it among their teams based on contributions, but they don't evaluate themselves. Their scores is based on other teams' perceptions of them, and the grade is used as a multiplier for a score. For example, let's say the team had to do a literature review, and that review got an 80. So based on the score they got for a peer evaluation, it can take some students to a 90 and some to a 70. Useful in courses that have a large component grade based on teamwork. And you can use rubrics. You don't have to just divide some points. It allows teams to give everyone a nice grade or equal score, which they like. The potential problem, if you're using it as a multiplier, it can really affect somebody's grade. So you can have a lot of challenges with that. The next one is called the Michelson method. Pretty much same type of thing. They rate and divide the scores. However, here they cannot give everyone the same score. There's an inverse score differential. So somebody will get a 10, somebody will get a 9, somebody will get 11. The scores are received from the teammates, and it's a direct component of their grade for that module, plus it's a percentage of their final grade, 5 to 10%. Pros and cons, they have to justify the lowest and the highest scores. The benefit is they cannot give everybody a nice grade. They, in talk about same grade, they have to be able to differentiate. But the students do complain, why didn't I get a 10? Everybody else got a 10. Why didn't I get a 10? So one of the problems. The last method is the Coles method. I am personally biased. I like this one. It has both quantitative and qualitative assessment. Not only are the student scores dependent on the feedback they get on their performance, they are also judged on what type of feedback they give, the quality of the feedback. The students have to complete both sections, the quantitative and the qualitative. They're added together for their grade. The pro of this method, it really helps the student to develop good quality feedback for their peers. And the types of competencies they have is they're in 3 domains. There's questions you can be asked. So this method works very well if you want a really robust set of data. Quickly about grading, which is very important to our students. A couple of principles we need to think when doing group work. Students need to be rewarded for individual performance, and that comes from their quizzes, their individual assignments, not part of the teamwork component. Then there should be reward for the team performance. Let's say they do a literature review. So that's the grade based on the writing and how they did that. And the third part comes from the student contribution, which is peer evaluations. Here, it has to have enough grade value for it to be motivating and valued. So think about grading schemas. When we're talking about grading peer evaluations, students have to be part of the grade process. That's why it's important for them to understand this is part of your grade. You decide the grades for others. They decide the grades for you. They must participate and they must evaluate all the other team members on their team. Our role as instructors, we're ultimately responsible for the grades. Please review those evaluations because there is a language barrier sometimes, a misunderstanding of how to use like a Likert scale or things like that. And sometimes things are not very fair for whatever personal conflict. So we are the last say on this. So here's a very brief example of how this could be graded. The team-based components are up to 35% of the grade, and the traditional components, if you have them in your class, could be up to 75. Remember, do keep the TPL portion modest in comparison, because let's be honest, the students will freak out if somebody else is responsible for part of their grade or something else is happening. So just to alleviate those anxieties, it has to be a little bit modest. So down to the cool part, the toys. There's lots of peer evaluation software available online. And I have to tell you, I've been doing this by hand where I had to copy and paste things. It was a nightmare. So I was super excited when I found all these software that can pretty much automate everything for you. This first one is iPeer. It's free, yay. Automates the entire peer evaluation process, integrated with Blackboard and Canvas. And it needs to be installed on a local server that is based on a typical LAMP stack. I have no idea what that means. All I know is you have to contact your IT people about security. So note about that. I provide you the video tours or the links for to download and take a look at them on each one of these slides. Next one is TeamMased, another free service, and they just recently overhauled their entire website. It looks very spiffy and user-friendly, yay. Students don't have to log in. The software sends them an email link to the evaluation. There is a thing about Google accounts, but it's optional. Instructor can add comments, I can collect responses and statistics. The greatest thing here is unlimited amount of students, unlimited amount of surveys, unlimited amount of classes, as long as you group the students into sections of no more than 100. Video tour provided and link for you to download. Spark. Price under question. You have to email them, which always makes me go, huh, okay. It says that it's basically a generic template you can use. There's it can be anonymous. There is a research paper that they published. This is how it looks. I could not get a lot of information on this. So you have to kind of contact them to get more. Next one is PRSS Pro. This is a licensing fee model. It provides both qualitative and quantitative information. It can calculate grades for you, yay. And they claim to be the most detailed reporting of any peer assessment tool on the market. And they have 10 different criteria, group and class ranking. Sounds very exciting, and the price is kind of reasonable. The next one is called CAPME, a licensing fee model. And their claim to fame is you don't even have to have an invoice. You can do it through a bookstore on your campus to have this small fee. It's used in 900 institutions in 53 countries, so it's widely used. You can make custom teams. The best thing that I found about this software is they have teamwork behavioral training modules for students, so the students can learn how to give feedback and team communication. I think also have a research paper. PeerAssessment.com, pricing model. 5 per class session, 30% off. They have all kinds of licensing schemes that you can do. You can export your entire list from Blackboard or whatever you're using into it. Ability to add co-instructors, which some others don't have, and customize options and graded reports. Now, if you're talking about the Ferrari of software, this is it. The Inter dashboard. I had the whole video tour. It was super exciting. I thought they were going to offer me a dinner and a yacht if I get it. So basically, a price-based model, super integrated. You can manage every aspect. You can upload your entire course content, videos, things. You can throw the kitchen sink at this thing. Synchronous, asynchronous. Basically, sign up for the tour. They're amazing. And the price-wise, I didn't have the class sizes to give them to get really good pricing, but I'm sure they really want to work things with you. So here's one. The other one is called OpenTBL, pretty much like Inter Dashboard, but you could see their prices and what they're offering. The one that interests me was self-hosted is free, so you would have to depend on your institution, see if you can do this. Again, just like Inter Dashboard, bells, whistles galore, unlimited courses, integrated TBL system. They can do all kinds of readiness assessments, individual, team, and their claim to fame is pedagogically sound template. And I compiled a big list of resources because every time I do these type of research objects, I just happen a mother load of all the resources. So here you can do the resources on your own time. If you're really into it, you can learn more about the TBL framework, how it's been adapted for online use, more resources, and everything you ever wanted to know. So hopefully after this, our acronym can change to Together Everyone Achieves More. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.